Chosen one, stop what you are doing. There is something that is about to happen in your life, and it is going to happen within hours. Not weeks from now, not after the next season of waiting. Within hours. And I need you to understand what is coming before it arrives. Because what is coming requires a specific kind of preparation that most people will not have made, and the preparation makes the difference between receiving what is being released at its full measure and receiving only a portion of what was intended. What I am about to tell you is not general encouragement. It is not a broad spiritual word for anyone who happens to encounter it. This message has been reaching the people it was designed to reach. And if you are watching this, you are one of those people, not by chance, by appointment. There is a pattern that runs through the lives of everyone who carries what you carry. A pattern of preparation that looks, from the inside, like delay. Like waiting without knowing what you are waiting for. Like standing at the edge of something that you cannot fully see, sensing that something is about to change, but without the specific clarity of what the change will be, or when exactly it will arrive. You have felt that. You have been in that place for longer than you expected to be. And the sensation of standing at the edge of an arrival you cannot name has been your constant companion in this season. What I want to tell you is that the sensation is not confusion. It is perception. You are sensing something real. Something that has been approaching your life from a direction you cannot see from where you are standing. Something that was set in motion long before you began to feel the anticipation of it, and that something is now close enough to where you are that the gap between the sensing and the arrival is about to close. Hours. That is how close it is. Within hours. That is the frame for what I need to tell you. Not as a metaphor, not as an approximation, as the most accurate description I can give of what the timing of this arrival actually is. The thing that has been building, the thing that your life has been in preparation for, the thing that the weight of this season has been the pressure of, is arriving within the frame of what hours means. And if you know it is coming, if you understand what it is and how to receive it, the arrival will be everything it was designed to be. If you do not know it is coming, if you encounter it without the frame that allows you to recognize it for what it is, you risk missing the significance of the moment entirely. This is not a theoretical risk. It is the most common way that people miss the moments they have been prepared for. Not through failure or sin or insufficient faith, through lack of recognition. The divine timing of an arrival that looks, from the outside, like an ordinary set of circumstances, a conversation that feels coincidental, a thought that feels like it came from nowhere, a door that opens without explanation, a shift in the internal atmosphere of your life that you might dismiss as mood rather than recognize as the arrival of what you have been waiting for. Preparation is the difference between encounter and recognition. And recognition is the difference between an encounter that changes everything and an encounter that passes without consequence. This is why preparation matters in the way that I am going to describe. Not preparation in the sense of performing specific religious acts or meeting certain spiritual requirements. Preparation in the sense of alignment, of getting the internal conditions right so that what is arriving has the landing space it needs to land at the depth it was designed to reach. The landing space is not something you manufacture, it is something you open. And the opening happens through understanding, through willingness, and through the specific neural and spiritual alignment that makes the deep receiving possible. Let me tell you about someone who missed the first moment of their arrival because they were not prepared to recognize it. I am not going to name this person because what I am describing is not a specific individual. It is a pattern that appears in enough lives that I can speak to it as a pattern. Someone who has been in preparation for a calling for years, who has sensed the calling, who has prayed about it and sought it and done the work of formation faithfully. And then the moment arrives and they do not recognize it, not because they are not spiritually attentive, but because the moment looks different from what they expected. The arrival came in the form of an ordinary conversation, a door that opened, a thought that arrived with unusual clarity, and they catalogued it as interesting rather than as the moment, and the moment passed. Preparation is the capacity to recognize the extraordinary within the ordinary form it arrives in. It is the work of clearing the filters that cause the mind to default to ordinary interpretation when something extraordinary is actually happening. It is the work of creating the internal conditions in which the arrival lands with the weight and recognition it carries, rather than being processed as one more item in the stream of daily experience. What are those internal conditions? I'm going to describe 4 of them, and I want you to hold each one carefully, because each one is specific to what is arriving in your life. The first condition is willingness, not willingness to receive blessing in the general sense. Specific willingness to receive a level of identity disclosure that is going to require you to release what you have been using as your definition of self. What is arriving is larger than the current definition, and if the current definition is held tightly, the arrival has nowhere to land. The willingness that is required is the willingness to be more than you have allowed yourself to be, which sounds like it should be easy. But for people who have been in long formation seasons, the constructed self has often become a form of protection, and releasing protection, even in the direction of expansion, requires a kind of courage that is specific to this moment. The second condition is attentiveness, heightened awareness of the ordinary circumstances of your life in the coming hours, not paranoid hypervigilance. Awake attention, the kind that notices when a thought arrives with unusual clarity, or when a door opens that was not open before, or when a conversation carries a weight that ordinary conversation does not carry. The arrival will come in ordinary clothing. Attentiveness is the capacity to see past the clothing to what is underneath. The third condition is receptivity at the level of the body. This is where the neural dimension of preparation becomes relevant. Because the mind can be willing and attentive and still have the channel through which the arrival moves narrowed by the accumulated stress and fragmentation of a long formation season. The weight of the season has a physical cost. It fragments the integration between the parts of the mind that work together to receive and process the kind of knowing that a divine recognition carries. And when that integration is fragmented, the arrival can be dimmed, not erased, but received at less than its full depth. Preparation for what is arriving includes preparation at the level of neural integration. The fourth condition is expectation, active, specific expectation, not passive hope. The posture of someone who knows that what they are waiting for is already in motion, already on its way, and is choosing to stand in the receiving position rather than the hoping position. Expectation is not arrogance. It is alignment with what has already been promised. And the promised arrival needs a receiver who is standing where the arrival is aimed. Let me tell you what is arriving. It is a moment of divine recognition, a moment in which the calling that has been over your life from before your birth, the assignment that has been in formation through everything you have been through, comes into a level of clarity that has not been available to you until this moment. What arrives within hours is not first a change in your external circumstances, though external change will follow. What arrives first is a shift in the internal clarity of who you are and what you are here for, a recognition at a level you have not previously accessed of the full dimensions of what was determined about you before you were born into the world. You have been carrying a calling that is larger than the story you have been living, not because you failed to believe correctly or pursue with sufficient force, because the full disclosure of the calling is timed. It arrives in its fullness only when the formation that precedes it has reached the point of completion that the disclosure requires. And the formation you have been in, the specific weight and duration of this season, the specific kinds of resistance and refinement that have marked the last period of your life, have been exactly the formation that precedes exactly this kind of arrival. The people in the biblical record who received this kind of timed disclosure all share the same characteristic. The moment of arrival was preceded by a period of formation that they could not fully make sense of while they were in it. Joseph could not understand the pit while he was in the pit. He could not understand the prison while he was in the prison. The understanding came from the other side of the arrival. And what the arrival revealed was not just the assignment, it was the meaning of everything that had come before. The formation that had seemed like abandonment was revealed as preparation. The delay that had seemed like failure was revealed as the road to the right moment. There is also something in the world right now, a discovery made by a neuroscientist who spent his career studying the architecture of human cognition that was designed to support exactly this kind of moment. A discovery about the neural pathway through which divine recognition travels and what makes that pathway clear versus what causes it to be narrowed by the accumulated interference of everything. The formation has been putting the mind through. I will tell you more about what that discovery is before we are finished. For now, what I want you to understand is that the preparation I am going to walk you through is not just spiritual in the conventional sense. It is also neural. And the two dimensions of preparation, the spiritual and the neural, are not separate. They are two aspects of the same integrated work of making yourself ready for what arrives within hours. The arrival that is within hours of your life is not a random act of grace, it is a precise delivery. And what it delivers is not something you have not already been given. It is something you have already been given that is now arriving at the level of your conscious understanding and practical capacity to hold it. The difference between carrying a calling and operating from a calling is the difference between this moment and what comes after this moment. Let me take you deeper into the four conditions I described, because each one has a specific texture that matters for what is arriving, and understanding that texture is part of the preparation. Willingness, at the level it is required for this arrival, is not a feeling. It is a decision that the mind makes in advance of the arrival, before the feelings catch up. Because when the arrival comes, especially when it comes in a form that is larger than the current definition of self, the feelings will not immediately be on the side of expansion. The feelings will be on the side of protection. They will generate versions of, "This cannot be for me," or "This is too large for what I have been," or "I am not prepared enough," or "There must be a mistake." Willingness is the pre-commitment to refuse those responses. To say, before the arrival comes and before the feelings respond to it, that I am choosing to receive what is being released, even when the receiving requires me to release the smaller version of myself that I have been protecting. This is not a small thing. This is the thing. Make the decision now. I am willing to receive the full version of what is arriving, even if it is larger than I have allowed myself to be, even if it requires releasing the story I have been protecting, even if the release is uncomfortable before it is liberating. There is a reason I am asking you to make this decision now, in advance, before the arrival. It is not superstition, it is architecture. The mind that has made a pre-commitment to receive operates differently than the mind that is still deciding whether to receive when the arrival comes. The pre-commitment creates a kind of internal orientation that affects how experience is filtered and processed in the hours that follow it. When you decide in advance that you are choosing to receive, the mind begins, below the level of conscious awareness, to arrange itself toward receiving. filters loosen, automatic protective responses are quieted. The channel that the arrival needs to travel through begins to open. This is not a technique, it is a natural function of the mind, well documented in the research on intention and neural priming. What you choose in advance shapes what becomes available to you when the moment arrives. And the decision you make right now, in this moment, before the hours have closed, is one of the most significant decisions you will make in this entire season. Choose to receive. Choose it fully. Choose it now. Attentiveness has a specific application in your circumstances right now. The arrival coming within hours will make itself known through the mechanisms of your ordinary life, not with visible supernatural indicators. It will arrive as a thought that carries unusual weight, as clarity about a direction that has been unclear, as a door that opens in a conversation or circumstance that has been resistant, as a confirmation from a source you were not expecting. The key to attentiveness is slowing the automatic processing of experience. The mind, under the conditions of a long formation season, develops a kind of automatic categorization of experience as ordinary. It does this to manage the cognitive load of constant discernment. But this automation, while functional for management purposes, is the primary mechanism through which divine arrivals are missed. The mind processes the arrival as ordinary before the spirit has the chance to register its significance. Attentiveness is the deliberate suspension of that automatic categorization. It is the decision to hold the next hours slightly differently from how you have been holding ordinary time. Let me show you this in the life of Elijah. After the confrontation on Mount Carmel, after the dramatic demonstration of divine power that any outside observer would have registered as conclusive proof of the calling and the presence of God with Elijah, the arrival of the next word from God came in the form of a still, small voice. Not more fire, not more wind, not more dramatic demonstration of divine power. The most significant word of that entire season arrived in the form that required the highest degree of attentiveness to receive. If Elijah had been operating in the automatized processing mode, the mode that says, I will recognize the next word from God because it will look like the last word from God, he would have missed it entirely. What arrived in your life in the coming hours will require the attentiveness that recognizes the still small voice beneath the noise of the ordinary. It will arrive in the form that you are least likely to automatically register as significant. And the preparation I am describing, the intentional slowing of automatic categorization, the deliberate holding of the next hours as extraordinary time, is what creates the capacity to recognize the significant within the ordinary. Here is a practical way to hold this. In the next several hours, when something happens that could be categorized as either ordinary or significant, pause before you categorize it. Give yourself one moment of non-automatic consideration. Ask, is there something in this that is beyond what it appears to be on the surface? Not with anxiety, with the attentiveness of someone who is awake to a larger layer of what is happening in their life right now. That one moment pause, practiced consistently in the hours ahead, will be the difference between encountering the arrival and recognizing the arrival. And recognition is everything. The story of Jacob is useful here. Jacob wrestled with the divine through the night without initially knowing what he was wrestling with. It was only in the persistence of the engagement, in the refusal to release what he was holding, that the nature of the encounter became clear. He could have dismissed the encounter as ordinary. He chose to engage it fully. And the engagement produced a blessing and a new name, a new identity, that he would not have received any other way. Your engagement with what arrives in the coming hours deserves the same full attention. Do not categorize it quickly. Stay with it. Let it tell you what it is. The third condition, receptivity at the level of the body, is where I want to spend the most time. Because this is the condition that is most frequently overlooked in spiritual preparation frameworks. And it is the condition that, when it is not addressed, most significantly limits what can be received. The body carries the weight of the formation season, not just emotionally, neurologically. The kind of sustained stress and uncertainty and resistance that characterizes a long formation season has measurable effects on the architecture of the brain, specifically on the integration between the two hemispheres of the brain, the left and the right, and the efficiency of the channel through which they communicate. When that integration is fragmentary, when the hemispheres are operating in competition rather than in coordination, the capacity of the mind to receive and hold and integrate the kind of knowing that a divine arrival carries is diminished. This is not a spiritual metaphor, this is neuroscience. And there is a researcher who has spent his career mapping exactly this relationship, a neuroscientist named Dr. Daniel Barone, building on the Nobel Prize-winning research of Dr. Roger Sperry, who demonstrated in 1981 how the left and right hemispheres of the brain process information differently, and how their integration determines the quality and depth of human cognition. What Dr. Barone discovered is a specific protocol for activating the state of full hemispheric integration, a state he calls neural sync. And the data on what becomes possible in that state, specifically in terms of the depth at which deep knowing can be received and held, is what makes this relevant to what I am telling you about preparation. In the neural sync state, the kind of knowing that carries divine recognition, the kind that arrives not as argument but as direct perception, lands at a deeper level. It integrates more fully. It is held more stably. The interference that a fragmented mind generates between the receiving and the holding is reduced. And for someone who is in the hours before an arrival that was designed to bring significant clarity, the difference between a mind that is integrated and a mind that is fragmented is not a small difference. It is the difference between receiving at full depth and receiving at partial depth. I will tell you how to access what Dr. Barone developed later in what we are sharing. For now, hold this. The preparation for what is arriving includes the neural dimension, not instead of the spiritual preparation. In addition to it, the spiritual and the neural are two aspects of the same integrated human capacity for receiving what God is releasing. Prepare at both levels, and what arrives within hours will land the way it was designed to land. There is one more thing I want to say about expectation before we move deeper into what is coming. Expectation is the posture that positions you correctly for a delivery. When a package arrives, the person who is home and awake and has cleared space for it receives it completely. The person who is away or asleep misses the delivery entirely. The package still came, but the reception did not happen because the receiver was not in position. Expectation puts you in position, not the passive, wishing kind that hopes something might happen someday. The active, specific, positioned kind that says, I know something is arriving. I know approximately when, and I am standing at the door. That posture changes everything about what the next hours hold. You are not hoping. You are positioned. You are standing in the posture of someone who knows it is coming and has made every preparation for the receiving of it. What I am asking you to do right now is take that posture. Decide that you are not watching this message as a consumer of spiritual content. You are watching it as someone who is in the final hours of preparation before something that was set in motion long ago arrives at your door. That shift in how you hold what you are doing right now is itself part of the preparation, and the shift matters. What is arriving in your life within hours is not arriving into a vacuum. It is arriving into the specific conditions that your formation has produced. And one of those conditions, the one I want to address in the deepest way before we reach the closing of what I have for you, is the condition of the receiving mind itself. You have been in a formation season, and formation seasons have a neurological signature. They are characterized by sustained uncertainty, by extended periods of not knowing, not seeing, not understanding the purpose of what is happening, by the kind of low-level chronic stress that does not announce itself dramatically, but accumulates over time into a pattern of fragmentation in the way the mind processes experience. The left hemisphere, which manages analysis and